So I wanted to make a short video about a verse that I find particularly clear. In 8th chapter, I think it's verses 22 and 23, God says, "And do not be like those who said, 'We hear,' but did not obey. Surely the vilest of animals with God are those who are deaf and deaf and dumb, who do not understand." So God says in the Quran, don't be like those who said, "We hear," but they did not obey. So if you claim to be a Muslim, that is what you are saying. We hear you, God. But then if you don't obey, God tells you the vilest of animals with God is people who don't use reason. If you say it's from God and you say, "I hear you, God," you're professing this faith yourself. Nobody's making you profess it, not here in America at least. If you are professing this faith and then you don't obey, God says you are a vile animal who is deaf and dumb. This God is telling you this. It's not me. I'm not telling you this. God says this in the Quran. Imagine the significance of this just one verse. And God gave an example in the Surah Jummah of something like this by saying those who were given the Torah and did not observe it as they should have observed it, their example is like an example of a donkey carrying a book. God compares the people who hear the word of God but do not obey it with dumb animals. You understand what God is telling you? These comparisons are for a reason. If you claim to be a Muslim, and this is such a huge misconception that all people, most people who call themselves Muslim have. It's a huge misconception. You always hear people say, "Oh, don't be haram police." Whenever you try to tell somebody what God said, they somehow belittle the people who try to do that. They call them extremists. They call them, annoying, whatever, just for them trying to help them. When it is you who are hearing these things but not obeying them, it is you that God calls dumb animals. So if you want to be considered a dumb animal by God, then ignore this. But if you see yourself as a Muslim, if you hear these laws, if you read the book, there is no option but to follow it. Otherwise, you probably shouldn't claim it. At least have some intellectual honesty and don't claim to be a Muslim. You don't have to do that. You're free to disbelieve if you want to. But don't just do it so you have benefits of a particular culture or a particular group of people. Don't do it just so you're part of society, which you are corrupting with your dishonesty. God says you are a vile animal if you do this. If you hear the laws of God but you do not obey, to God you are a vile animal. And if you call yourself a Muslim, you have to understand that. Yeah, sure, I can't tell you you're not a Muslim, and that's the biggest cop out in the world. Oh, God is forgiven. You can't tell who's a Muslim, who's not. Sure, I can't tell you. I'm a nobody. But guess what? What I can tell you is that if you hear the Quran, if you hear these laws and you don't follow them, God calls you a dumb animal, the vilest of animals. So, you take that as you want. I'm not saying that you're not a Muslim, but what I'm saying is that God is saying that you are a vile, dumb animal if you do this. So you take that as you please. It's important to understand this. There has to be a level of intellectual honesty when we deal with this topic. If you're going to call yourself a Muslim, at least be honest with yourself. You're not God defines you a certain way if this is what you do. Now, if you call yourself a Muslim and you obey and you do things but you make mistakes, that's a different thing. But if you're just going about your business, knowing the law, not even trying, then God says you're a dumb animal. And you take that as you please. I didn't say it. God said it. It's in chapter 8, verse 21, 22, or 23. I'm not sure. It's two of those verses. So that's all. I just wanted to quickly say that. So I hope it helps somebody wake up. Good luck with that.